Hello there. Hope you are doing well and welcome to another passage of reading comprehension. So here the direction for question is answer the following question based on the information given below. Well, let's read the text. The text stated about intellectual humility. It's simply recognizing that something that you believe might, in fact, be wrong. Of course, it never feels like it's wrong. We would not believe things that feel wrong, but an intellectually humble person recognizes that many of the things they confidently believe might, in fact, be inaccurate. Philosophers have been talking about this as an philosophers have been talking about this as an intellectual virtue for a long time. That people should recognize the possibility that they might be wrong about things, but then in the last 20 years or so, behavioral researchers, so psychologists and others became interested in the overconfidence fact. This is the fact that almost all of us are far more confident in ourselves than we probably should be. Most people think that they are better than average on most dimensions, which of course is impossible. And we just go through life believing that we are on the side of the truth most of the time. And about 10 years ago, the John Templeton Foundation became interested in this topic and began to ask the question, well, what would it mean if we could get people to be a little more intellectually humble? If we get people to realize that their confidence and what they believe in their attitudes and their viewpoints is sometimes misplaced, would it improve their decisions and would it improve how they deal with disagreements and conflicts with other people? So it was just the right time and the right place to begin to ask questions, right? Or ask the question, right? What can we do? What can we do to sort of make people more realistic in the accuracy of their views? Well, people differ in the degree to which they tend to be intellectually humble, and that is probably due to some genetic factors in terms of people's tolerance of uncertainty. It is difficult to be intellectually humble and admit you may not know things if you want certainty all the time. But it is also having a lot to do with how people were raised. Did your parents require you to sort of defend the things you are saying? So where would you get that? Well, where is that information from? So it is both a personality characteristic, but also a state of mind that just emerges some of the time. Can we cultivate it? That is a big question. People are beginning to study. Can we develop ways to make people more intellectually humble? A lot of studies show that men are slightly less intellectually humble that, than women in terms of being certain in what they believe. You asked about question. That is an interesting one. There is only one study I know about, and it hasn't been published. So I don't want to put too much credibility on it. That suggests that education had the two efforts on intellectual humility. The more you learn, the more schooling you have. The more intellectually humble you tend to be, in the sense that you begin to recognize all this information out there that you don't have a clue about. So it increases intellectually humility in general, but education decreases intellectual humility in the areas in which you are an expert or specialist, which makes a little bit of sense. It makes a little sense that an expert is required to be more confident of their beliefs than someone who is not. So it increases general intellectual humility, but decreases intellectual humility when it comes to your own areas of expertise and specialization, isn't it? So we have read this text, and what do we understood? What do we understand here? The passage explains intellectual humility, isn't it? Intellectual humility, right? So the recognition that one's belief might be wrong, right? Overconfidence phenomenon. Uh, Most people are overconfident in their beliefs, thinking they are better than you can say that average, right? So uh, you also find out the research interest. The Templeton Foundation and researchers have investigated how fostering or nurturing intellectual humility can benefit decision making and conflict resolution. So influences on intellectual humility, it is influenced by genetic factors, upbringing, and education. So education's dual effect, education increases general intellectual humility, but decreases it in areas of expertise. So all total, you can talk about that. Uh, the passage explains intellectual humility, its importance as an intellectual virtue. It discusses the flow of overconfidence, the efforts to motivate or cultivate intellectual humility, and how factors such as you can say genetics, right? Genetics, upbringing, and education influence it. It also introduces the research interest in promoting intellectual humility to improve decision making and conflict resolution is also highlighted. Education tends to increase overall intellectual humility, but can decrease it in areas of expertise, isn't it? That is what you would find out as the main ideas and the summary of it, right? Now let's move to the style of the text. So the style is nothing but explanatory, explanatory, and also you can say analytical, right? Explanatory and analytical, providing a clear and thorough examination of intellectual humility and related research. So similar to that, we also have tone of the text. So what do we find out the tone? The tone is nothing but informative. It is nothing but an information and contemplative, informative and contemplative. And what does it aim to do? It aims to provoke, it aims to provoke a thought about the nature of intellectual humility and its importance, right? So, if you talk about that certain ideas like intellectual humility, what is that? Recognize intellectual humility that recognizes that one's belief might be, uh, you can say that incorrect, despite feeling overconfident about them. So that is what known as an intellectual humility, isn't it? Similar to that, if you talk about overconfidence fact or overconfidence phenomenon. So if you talk about overconfidence phenomenon, so this could be called as a tendency of people to be more confident in their beliefs and abilities than it's warranted, right? So similar to that, if you talk about genetic factor or you talk about cultivating intellectual humility or called as a you know, other words which are creating a little bit confusion. But let's move to the question. We have understood that. The question stated that identify the central theme of the passage. Now, in that case, if you look at the choices, so what does each choice point out here? The first choice stated that the concept of intellectual humility and its importance in decision making and conflict, you can say conflict resolution, right? So this is what the central theme that we can find out, the concept of intellectual humility and its importance in decision making and conflict resolution. Now, uh, the passage begins by defining intellectual humility and discussing its importance, isn't it? Importance. So it then delves into how overconfidence affects people's beliefs, and you can say that overconfidence, right, means affects people's beliefs and attitudes and explores the factors that influence levels of in the intellectual humility, such as you can say genetics, right, genetics, and you can say that upbringing, genetics, upbringing, and you can say that gender and education, gender and education, isn't it? So, in that case, we can say option one captures the essence of the passage. The discussion focuses on understanding intellectual humility and its potential benefits in improving what? Improving decision, right? Making and handling disagreements, right? But look at the option two. In that case, we can say option one is the best central thing. So, but look at the other options. The historical background of intellectual humility as an intellectual virtue, right? Now, option two cannot be the answer, but while the passage briefly mentions the philosophical perspective on intellectual humility, option two doesn't dwell on the, or you can say the passage does not dwell on the historical background in details. Hence, you can say this option two cannot be called as a central theme or main theme of the text. Look at the option three. Option three said the overconfidence fact and its impact on individuals' beliefs and attitude. Now, you can say that the overconfidence phenomenon is discussed, but it is framed within the, you can say that broader context, right? Broader context, broader context. So, you can say that what it is not the central theme, right? So, in that case, option three is eliminated. Option four, the factors influencing levels of intellectual humility, such as genetic upbringing, gender, and education. Now, again, option four cannot be the central theme of the passage because these factors are indeed explored, right? Explored, but they are part of the broader discussion on intellectual humility rather than the central theme itself. So hence we can say option one is the correct answer. If you understood this, that's all. Thank you.